It's John, right? John Harborough. Not Jim, right? It's John. John.
Jim. John is the
Okay,
John's
it's
with
Jim.
the John is with the well, John's with the Ravens.
Right.
Jim is now with the Chargers.
Okay. Yep, I am ready.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for yet another episode of Talkin' Athletics with MTJ. Today, you've just got the J and the T. Mikey, suspended. Poor attitude coming to our podcast last week. You know, Joe and I
Yeah.
decided it was in the best interest of the whole podcast. Suspend Mikey for a week, and, you know, we'll continue on. We'll evaluate next week, see if we want him back, you know?
Didn't he say something about exposing to children too, or something like
Whoa,
that?
whoa. You said that. I don't recall ever saying anything about exposing anything to children. I don't recall anything about
I
that.
could have sworn when I
Nope.
watched something last week, I was like, what the heck? Or was that you? I can't remember. Either way.
No, I don't think so.
Someone said, you can't say that here.
Oh,
There
no,
are
I
children that watch you.
definitely said that to Mikey. Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
So I don't
okay.
recall exactly what his phrasing
Yeah.
was there, but yeah, no, suspended. The end of the story, suspended. But we're going to get right into it today. I know we usually drag these podcasts out today. I think we got a pretty short and concise lineup.
Yep.
But you know how it works around here. Things are going to come up, and we're going to see where we go with them.
We
And
might have different opinions.
oh, we always have different opinions, so let's get real about that. But the first thing that we had on today's list, talking about NFL coaches, we got a lot of movement going around. There's a lot of vacancies, and a lot of the names that we're seeing being popped up as the guys getting hired aren't what we would argue as some of the bigger names on the coaching market right now.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
it's been a bit surprising in some situations. Other situations, I think that we had talked about it a little previously with Bill, in particular,
Yep,
Bill Belichick.
Yep.
But
Still not
it's been
hired.
curious to see where everything's going to shake out. I don't know. Where do you want to start, Joe? Out of the 4 teams, 3 teams? I don't know who else moved. Out of everybody that's hired a new coach here recently, where do you want to start off as who would you say is the best hire in your eyes?
Well, the best hire, which I was hoping we're saving last, would definitely be Harborough to the Chargers.
Okay.
I think that is so. I think before the season, like before this hiring season started, I thought my top 3 coaches were Bill Belichick, Harborough, and Vrabel. I have obviously Bill Belichick a tier higher than both of them, but obviously Bill Belichick hasn't been hired yet, so.
I'm not asking you to compare them.
Yeah.
Just asking for who your best was. So Jim Harbaugh, you got as the best right now. Because I
Yes.
know we're going to talk about the Chargers and why you think that's a good fit
Yeah.
a little bit later on. So I don't want you to elaborate
Yeah,
too much right now. But that's where I disagree with you. And I am going to say Raheem. I like Raheem Morris to the Falcons. I know you and Mikey were big on wanting Bill in that role, and that was one where, you know, Bill, I think he had interviewed twice. They called him back for a second interview.
I'm wondering, obviously, this happened today, so I'm wondering if the second interview was kind of like to Bill saying, like, are you sure you want to be the GM? Like, maybe that second interview. Obviously, we don't know anything.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the thing, that the interview went well first time, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, but I also want to be the GM, and then all of a sudden maybe the Falcons were like, let's get him back in here and
I don't
see.
know.
That's just speculation.
I agree with what you're saying there, where a part of me, my initial instinct was that, oh, yeah, they're bringing him back in. They're, you know, hashing out the details of, hey, you're going to have control over X, Y, and Z. But then another part of me thought, if it was just as cut and dry as we're making it see, or like, and that's where I think it had to be X, Y, and Z.
Something had
where
to
it couldn't
have
have just
happened.
been as cut and dry of like, hey, are you sure that you're not willing to relinquish control of the general managership? That's something that I feel like if it's a simple one question, could have been answered over a phone call. But there must have been interest on both sides to take the second interview.
And
you know
maybe,
what I mean?
like I said, they were trying to convince him not.
I'm wondering if it was a, hey,
speculation.
we're going to give you X amount of control. And Bill's like, I don't
can do
know.
better.
I need this amount if you really want to make this work. You know, and us hypothesizing, we can go any which way. You know, couldn't even imagine what goes on in those boardrooms of an NFL like decision. Right. You know, so
tell us about the new hire for the Falcons.
I
think you believe is
Raheem Moore, and that's where he was the DC over at
the Rams
for the Rams last year,
okay.
and He's been there for, I think, a few years, but even before that, I want to say he was with Atlanta.
Oh, okay. So kind of coming home.
Coming home, a guy that's been in the organization a while. Clearly, if the general manager bringing you back, the owner's cool with bringing you back, you have a good relationship there. Right. They trust him, you know? So that's where I do think that that'll play a big role in everybody being on the same page, which we've seen Carolina not been able to do quite yet, and we'll talk about that here in a second.
Important. You got to all be on the same page.
But all being on the same page when it comes down to your leadership, when it comes to your owner, your GM, and your head coach. Those are, you know, and then you got to get the players to buy in behind that.
Right.
If you have all three of those people on the same page, that is the start of building something successful in my eyes. So I think that is a very successful, and I know the Rams defense, you know, years past has always been hyped up, and we've always said it's because of the guys. Yeah. We look at what they've lost here.
Older. Those guys are getting older, so he was able to get some stuff out of those older guys. I mean,
and he was able to teach those younger guys while the vets were there, while they had that stud
the last
defense.
Couple of years have been teetering on retiring, and he's probably been one of those reasons why he stayed there and was like, okay, I love my coach, my defense coordinator.
Well, this year's been different too. I feel like it. And maybe I could be wrong here. This is just an initial instinct. I feel like it's not this often that you have this many coaching jobs available with the carousel, and then big names that are available of the coaches.
Yeah, because this guy wasn't really even on my list. Obviously, I kind of already mentioned who my top three would be.
The Patriots hired. We forgot about one. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was like, oh, yeah, Bill's gone. Yeah, the Patriots hired Mayo. Yep, I forgot about that.
My only thing with the Falcons, and the reason why I don't think that it's, I mean, it could be a good hire, just something I wouldn't be too excited about, is because I thought that their defense, so you're right, he might be able to elevate the defense, but we have seen other head coaches who are defensive minded just really not care about the offense, and that's kind of been Atlanta's, you know, issue the last couple of years, is us saying, well, like, wow, look at all those weapons they have, but then they don't really have an offensive mind to utilize those weapons. So I'm just afraid maybe he came in and looked at the owner and said, I will actually utilize these weapons, but I'm just, you know, he's not like an Andy Reid or like a Matt LaFleur or, you know, McDaniels, who like has an offensive mind and be like, okay, I'm going to be able to use these weapons. I'm just afraid he's going to be focusing more on the defense. That's why I'm a little skeptical of the hire. Obviously, he's as I always say, these games have to be played. Who knows? Maybe he'll be great. That division is a very winnable division. But I just feel like they should have gotten more of an offensive-minded coach. I don't think the defense has really been the issue. So it's kind of a wait and see for me. I don't hate the hire. I also don't love it, because obviously last week, like I talked about, I thought a match made in heaven was Bill Belichick, for the simple reason was that he would bring in like a Josh McDaniels who could utilize those weapons. So I'd be interested to see what offensive coordinator comes in and utilizes these weapons.
I told you about, that wasn't last week, was it?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks.
Last week? When it comes to Bill, he needs the chips. I don't think the power can go multiple ways with Bill.
Well, he always did that with Josh McDaniels. He always just let Josh be and Bill O'Brien. He's always had an offensive coordinator.
And I'm seeing what you're saying there, like where that I'm looking at it from
successful.
I'm looking at it as the perspective of dropping Bill into an NFL system. You are putting into a team as the Falcons. You don't need to rebuild. The piece that we don't think, anyways. From the outside looking in, everybody looking at the Falcons scratching their heads this year is wondering what happened, because they have the pieces.
Offensive schemes.
Everybody says they have the pieces around to make it work. So it's not a situation where you're looking to rebuild, where if we look at Bill Belichick's lineups, even when they were going far, like they weren't probably the most sought-after lineups by GMs. They were lineups that fit his specific schemes that he was looking to take advantage of and utilize with these skills, where I still to this day don't know how Bill Belichick evaluates players. You know what I mean? Like to the point where it seems like everybody else's garbage is Bill's gold. And we're all saying that team isn't, I wouldn't call it gold, but it's definitely not garbage.
Oh, it's I feel like that position should have been highly sought out by like every coach. I agree. So
I thought Vrabel could have been a nice fit there. And that's
I thought a lot of people. I thought Harbaugh would have been good. I literally you could have named any head coach, and I would have said he's good.
I have my fears on Harbaugh. I do. I
not in that division. We'll get into it later about Harbaugh. But I feel like that specific division, I feel like, because I mean, seriously, what? Baker Mayfield's probably the best quarterback in that division.
Agreed. Right now, yes.
And then, I mean, you're looking at, what, Todd Bowles as the best head coach? I mean, I can't.
I am terrible with head coaches. I couldn't.
He's also the
yeah.
the Buccaneers head coach.
Yeah,
but that's
no,
what
I know,
mean.
but that's where
I don't
I'm
know who the Saints head
trying to put a
coach
face.
is. Obviously, Carolina just Carolina's in that. Yeah, Carolina's in that division. They just hired a new head coach, so there's another like rookie head coach. So I just feel like that would have been a good spot for any of these crafty veterans where it's like a no doubt like I'm going to be the best head coach in that division. Because Carolina just hired.
I was gonna say Carolina hired what was it, Dave Canales?
Yep, Dave Canales
to be their head coach, which I don't really know if I'm gonna even put any stock into because it doesn't matter when the Panthers hire a new coach. They've done it consistently for the past 3 years. So
this is their fourth head coach in 3 years or something.
You know what I mean? This isn't even news. I mean, we knew that the coach was getting fired forever ago, but I mean. It's expected out of this organization at this point to hire somebody new. And until they prove to me they can find a guy that apparently aligns with their values, I'm confused at what's happening in the interview process. Like,
right.
I guess that's when you look back at the past 3 years. You've sat down with 3 different individuals.
Yep, starting with Matt Rule, right?
Matt Rule. And then you had Frank Wright at the tail end. I'm trying to think of his name.
Yeah, and there was someone else.
So Matt Rule, Frank Wright, and then now Dave. Dave Canales. So yeah, those would be the 3. You've talked with all 3 of those people in the past 3 years.
Yep.
What did Dave Canales tell you that was so different from what Frank Wright told you the year before and from what Matt Rule told you the year before that to the point where you're like, yeah, this is the guy? I'm surprised. I really think that they're just grasping at straws knowing that – I don't think that Bill Belichick or Vrabel wanted those jobs.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm speaking, again, just at the top of mind.
Carolina.
I haven't looked into that whatsoever. They could have taken meetings. I don't know.
Well, I will just say this. I think as far as Carolina, like you said, I bet you they weren't really able to get those top-tier coaches to come over here. And looking at the hire, he was the offensive coordinator for the Bucs, I believe. And I do not think this is a good hire at all for Carolina because obviously before the season even started, I had mentioned that I had Bucs in the last spot of that division simply because they were the worst run offense in the entire league. They were 32 of 32. They went 32 of 32. This year was, again, last place in running.
I think there should be an asterisk when you say that, though. I feel like they ran the ball much better later in the year.
Right, but they still only averaged 85 yards.
Agreed. Oh, no, I'm not saying it was impressive. Early on in the season, it was not good.
I mean, it's like I said, you got to take into account because he's still – I mean, sure, they might have averaged slightly more, but did they call more run plays? Because I feel like they didn't. I still feel like they were wheeling and dealing. And my only thing is –
I would have to look into that.
Let's just say they did run more plays. Do you still think they're making it all the way to like 16th or 17th? Because I feel like with it will be his second year, Bryce Young. It will be his second year. But with a young quarterback, you like to have balance. You like to kind of protect him, kind of get him easier passes with the play action. And I just feel like this head coach, who doesn't really run the ball that often, he's another one that's not really setting up Bryce Young for much success unless he came in, like you said, in the interview process and said, we're going to be a balanced team. It was really, Todd Bowles who didn't want to run the ball, and we had Baker, so we were just going to throw. So that wasn't me. As you saw the last 4 weeks, it was more of my offense. We could have a little more balance. If he came in and said that, I want to see that. But I'm just looking at his track record of the last 2 years, and I get what you're saying. But, all right, so there's 17 weeks in a season. So what, 34 weeks? And we're saying, like, oh, the last 4 weeks they ran the ball really good. It's like, okay, well, the other 30 weeks he was still really bad.
It wasn't even that good. It was just the last week against the Panthers, and in a 9-0 game, they ran the ball well.
So
but they were also triple covering Evans that game.
So I just feel like it's not the greatest of hire, but you never know what the head coaches that the Panthers were even able to line up. Maybe this was really their only option.
That's true. I really don't think that's the case. But then again, it's weird because you've got Seattle and Washington, both teams needing a head coach,
right?
That are out on Vrabel and Belichick.
Yeah,
they're out on both of them,
really
which
weird.
is the rumor. None of that's confirmed. No teams, I'm sure,
True.
stepping up to the plate and saying that.
But just out of all of these teams that you're saying, if I was a head coach and I had,
Washington.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick Carolina. Would be you think people would?
You're saying wait? Are you saying you're the head coach? I'm saying if I'm
Carolina is at the bottom of my list. If I could pick out of all of these teams that you've mentioned, like who have hired, I don't want to go to Carolina. I really don't, because like you said, they've fired their last 3 head coaches. The roster doesn't really have much. I'm not impressed by Bryce Young. I mean, Washington at least has a good defense.
But we're talking about two defenses. So that's where, if we're comparing Seattle and Washington, where I'd rather go as a head coach.
I'm just talking about all of them. Like I'm including the Chargers.
Okay.
I'm just saying I'm not going to put them all in rankings.
Chargers is the biggest draw, and I think you're looking strictly at quarterback. Because what are we like we talked about last week with Josh Allen? Like, it's not the team at the end of the year, like at the end of the career. It's the quarterback. Like,
right.
Who's the quarterback of the team? So I get it from that perspective of like, hey, yeah, that's the face that can, out of all the teams right now, out of all the teams that needed a coach, that's the quarterback that could get you there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's where I would say
saying,
that.
No matter
besides,
what way you rank these open positions, Carolina should be at the bottom.
Agreed. I agree with you there.
Plain
just
like. I'd rather go to Washington. I'd rather go to Seattle.
You have no job
I'd rather
security.
go to Atlanta.
Like,
that's
you just signed a contract. You think if you win, it's where the standards are the lowest. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you just got to win 3 games probably to keep your job.
True.
I take that back, because isn't that what Frank did this year? I don't know what they
more
went.
or less.
But no, at the end of the day, it's just been interesting to see the coaches moving around in the carousel, and I'm almost more interested in Vrabel at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know where he's going to end up, because he's a guy that I think was Tennessee's first coaching. I think it was his first head coaching in Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken.
So. And he won Coach of the Year just a couple of years ago.
And
he went to the AFC.
He won the AFC the other 3 years ago, I think.
And he made it to the championship game against the Chiefs, I think, right?
Yeah, they beat New England at home in the playoffs. I vividly remember it. It was wild.
He's a like I said, he's a culture setter. He comes in, and I feel like he's just a head coach that he can come in and be like, I can work with anything. That's why I am very surprised that some of these people like Atlanta isn't, because again, I feel like Atlanta needs a culture. I feel like he can just come in and immediately he has a culture. It's like, we are going to be tough. We have no excuses. We are a tough football team.
Issue now that I'm thinking even deeper about it, Vrabel preaches the exact same things that most of the other coaches, other than I would say probably Pete Carroll, because Pete's always kind of been out there in my opinion.
Okay. Preaches what?
In terms of the Atlanta coach was always preaching toughness,
right?
And so it's the same. I get why they're like, hey, I don't know if I want that guy, because he seems like maybe a little bit better version of the guy that we just had, which in Atlanta's case, a little bit better gets you to the playoffs, but you're looking for a lot better. And you're looking for something completely different after after the taste that's just in your mouth. Yeah. So I guess that's the only way that I can justify it. But I'm very interested to see what. I think he's a great coach. I love the mentality, what he was able to do with what he had in Tennessee. I know you and Mike, you're big on stock on that. Where look at the rosters in Tennessee. You're telling me those were great rosters, and
that's
he was
why
able to get them there.
He can handle anything. He's never really had the greatest
the division's never been great ever since Luck left. You know, the division's always been up for grabs, but.
Well, when you're winning it with, like you said, Ryan Tannehill as your, again, Ryan, I don't know where you have him on your rankings, but again, he's kind of like, to me, a like Kirk Cousins-esque, like where you're just middle of the pack. You're not terrible, but you're certainly not the best. No, you're like an average quarterback.
Let's dig a little deeper into the Chargers. I know you want to go there, so I'll let you run with that for a little bit, because I told you I disagree, but I'm going to let you give me all the reasons that you like Jim Harbaugh and why this is huge for the Chargers, and really what this means systematically, I guess, for the Chargers.
Okay, so I have 2 takes. I think this is a fantastic, incredible hire for the Chargers. However, if I'm Harbaugh, like I had mentioned a few weeks ago, if I was Harbaugh, I would have stayed in college. Now, obviously, if all suddenly we find out like the Big Ten is coming after him or whatever, the NCAAs, and then it was smart to get out of there if something was coming. If nothing actually comes to it, then I feel like he should have stayed. But he decided to go. I just feel like it's not the greatest idea for him to go specifically to the Chargers because, like you said, they have Justin Herbert, and obviously I'm very high on Herbert.
As you should be.
when you look at his division, best case scenario, he is the second best head coach in that division. Worst case scenario, he's the third best head coach in that division. Because you cannot tell me that Andy Reid is not a better coach than him. And Sean Payton, who also has a Super Bowl and literally got the Broncos. Broncos, let me remind you, the Broncos gave up 70 points.
The Broncos deserve their own episode because
they improved quite a bit in this season.
But why'd they bench Russ? Because of the contract, because of money. And that, at the end of the day, is what is going to keep your organization from winning championships, is telling your player, hey, you've got to take one for the team. I know if you do well, we're going to have to pay you a bag, and we're not going to get to the playoffs. So instead of taking this big growing step together as a team, we're going to sit you instead. Like, that is it. I felt like it was such what should have been a step in the right direction for the Broncos all season. I feel like is going to be overshadowed by that decision of, hey, we decided that we're not willing to pay our starting quarterback who just got us this great improvement with the new head coach we got him, and he's showing the improvement we want to see from him. We're not going to pay him.
They want to go younger, and they don't want to pay him. So, but anyway, and then you also have Antonio Pierce, who is now the head coach of the Raiders. So I just feel like that division for Harbaugh is a little tough. Obviously, we have already extensively talked about Atlanta. I feel like that's a winnable division. He would have, without a doubt, probably been the best head coach in that division. I just feel like for him, it probably isn't the greatest ideas to go there. However, for the Chargers, it's a great thing because it's name recognition. I mean, this is a team that literally they talk about all the time where it's like, oh, the Chargers are playing an away game in their own stadium. It's name recognition. We have Harbaugh. We are making a big move. We are trying to draw fans. We are the Chargers. We're trying to draw fans in, and we have the quarterback. We have Justin Herbert. We'll work out everything else. Our defense. Defense is
can I stop you there
right.
because I'm going to interject? You quite literally have to figure everything else. It's not we'll figure everything else out. It is you have to figure everything else out.
Absolutely.
Keenan Allen, is he coming back? Does he have another year in his contract? I don't know. He's old.
So,
he's looked really good those last 3 weeks, whatever it was, but he is old. You can't depend on him to be your number one. If he's your number two, he's a great number two. You know what I mean? Like, I'll put him in that category for right now, but you're missing a number one option for them. Austin Eckler, done.
Again, this is stuff
defense
for
atrocious.
What you're saying about the coach as the GM, I'm bringing.
Oh, agreed.
Him in.
Agreed. And I cannot argue with you I hadn't even thought about it from the Chargers play away games in their home stadium. Yeah. Agree with you completely there.
That's
hadn't
why
even thought
it's a win for the Chargers, but an L for Harbaugh.
I'm telling you, I don't. I think you'll see, just like we saw New England fans this year.
Okay.
Gillette, at times, especially later on in the year after the season was, hey, in the toilet, it was fairly empty.
Yeah. But
Chargers games
is better than Chargers opposing fans there.
And I agreed with you there, but that's where I guess it's LA. I don't think you're
right
because it's such a
big market.
I'm trying to think of it's a destination, like people move to go to LA. You are going to get all of these different fans from everywhere. Like, they're always going to have an issue with that, but getting fans to the stadium, if you can have your fans there,
yes,
that is going to drown out all of the, it's going to make it look a lot better as well. So I get what you're saying, and I completely agree with you there. I don't know if the winning is going to be there to get the fans in the stadium.
True, but I think we also have to look. This is the only advantage for Harbaugh is the fact that their ownership is very patient. I mean, we all said that Brandon Staley should have been fired as soon as they blew it against the Jaguars. I mean, it was the biggest comeback in playoff history. It was catastrophic, and the ownership was just like, no, we're fine. We're going to keep him. So that's going for Harbaugh, where it's
and
like,
I get where the ownership's coming from there too, because I felt like they had made a huge steps with Herbert, and they were doing great as a coaching staff until this year, where they took a giant step backwards. But if you'd have fired him last year, I would have been upset with it, I think. Because
I don't think so.
Over a bad half of football. Other than that, they did really well. He met all of your expectations except for that half of football. I get it. It's a very important half of football. But that's where I think he earned that extra attempt. Looking back at it, Would have been a great move.
But again, it's Brandon Staley is known as a defensive-minded coach. You look at his defense, and he was ranked like 28th out of 32,
See,
and you're just like, you're the defense. You're supposed to. That's your specialty.
But that's where I feel like I struggle with both you and Mikey with this. It's if things are wrong, I'm putting all of the blame on the head coach. I'm not looking at if it's the offensive side or the defensive side. It's the head coach's problem, right? But success, I'm willing to divvy that out to offensive coordinators and D coordinators and not give the credit to the head coach. Whereas I'm looking at it the grand scheme, head coach, he is responsible for the misery just as much as he is responsible for the good times in my eyes. So when I'm looking at the good times and what the progress of the Chargers was when they were making that progress up until this past season and the last half of that last game, I would say it was there for me.
Well,
I'd have to. Then again, this is all coming spur of the moment, so I'd have to look into the stats behind it more. But that's where I feel like you're very quick to associate any losses with the head coach, but any wins or any good things that come, I feel like you guys are very easy to say. Well, yeah, look at this roster. Of course, he did this and that.
Well, that's the thing, though. We'll bring up like Nick Sirianni then, because I last week agreed with you that I felt that it was. I gave him credit last year. He got them all the way to the Super Bowl.
I gave him a ton of credit.
But
I gave him credit the first 3/4 of this year, too.
But then guess what? He lost his offensive coordinator this past offseason, and then as the year went on, guess what? The offense got worse and worse, and then all suddenly the locker room kind of shifted and was just like, I thought
we put it on the defense. I thought we put that on the defense. I thought their offense was still putting up 30+.
Their defense wasn't.
So that's why I don't think you can point at the OC leaving and say, oh, yeah, the offense is trash now. The offense is still putting up 30.
In the playoffs, though.
Agreed.
That's the thing.
But that's what I'm saying.
I'm not an Eagles fan.
I feel like you're condensing it.
I agree. I
get what you're saying here, but I feel like you're condensing it and looking at one game.
Because don't get me wrong,
it was much bigger than one game with the reason that Nick Sirianni got fired. Where you're looking at the offense and you're pointing at one.
Nick Sirianni's still the head coach.
Well, he should be fired.
Yeah,
that's
so you
ridiculous.
I
agree
now
there.
You're looking at it saying like, okay, it really, because they changed their defensive coordinator in the middle of the season. Remember, Matt Patricia also became, so they tried
Which is just interesting.
They also then, like I said, they got a different offensive coordinator before the season because their offensive coordinator left. So it's just tough because when you start to see hindsight, that's when all of a sudden you can start to put the blame on certain things. But going back to the Chargers, like I said, I think as an ownership, this is a great move. Obviously, Harbaugh is like a top 3 head coach that was available, actively available. Again, I think it's just proving to your fans. Now, I will say this, though. I looked it up today. The Chargers are 32 of 32 in salary cap. You know how much money they are over the cap? Do you want to take a guess?
I don't even have the slightest clue what the average team salary cap is.
Well, this is 32 of 32. They have the worst.
Meaning that you're saying they are overspent.
They are very much over the cap.
Does the head coach count towards the salary cap?
No.
They should.
Or at least
we've talked about how much importance that the coach is. They should.
I don't think they do.
I don't think they do either, but they should.
In the NBA, they don't. So
I think it's kind of ridiculous that they don't, though. You know what I mean? Like.
But anyway, they are $45 million and some change over the cap. And guess what? That's Austin Eckler. That's not even including Austin Eckler, who is now a free agent. So I have it right here. This is what I told you to kind of like, hey, real quick before the, we start this podcast, let me get this up. So Keenan Allen next year is going to, his cap number is almost $35 million. Khalil Mack is 38.5. Joey Bosa is 36.5. Mike Williams, who only played 2 games last year, salary cap hit is 32.5. Justin Herbert is reasonable. He's 19.5, and their center, let me remind you, their center is making $14 million next year. That is why they are so over the cap. They are just spending galore.
And like you were saying, in all the wrong areas.
Right.
In all the wrong areas. And that's where I'm saying, I think it's an uphill battle.
Right.
For this Chargers team, which
Do
is
they
why.
even have a GM right now? I don't think they have a GM because I know they fired him when they fired.
I don't know. And that's what I'm saying. this needs a rebuild. You know,
Yeah.
like this needs.
But you got the quarterback, which is the
Agreed.
first step.
Agreed.
But it's just so tough because that's the thing. Khalil Mack, I believe, has like 3 years left on his contract. Bosa's got 3 years on his contract. So it's like you can't really cut them because then it's just like, well, we're going to have dead cap money on our books for the next 2 years if we cut them. So because I was telling my mom, I was like, okay, let's just say that they are like, okay, we're done with Khalil Mack. You know, he's going to be making like he's making like $36 million. If they cut him, they still have to pay him $22 million. So they're really only saving.
And he's still really good at football. He's still
Yeah.
really good at football.
So it's like, okay, do we want to cut him? It's like, but you're $45 million over, and eventually one of these guys have to restructure or get cut, plain and simple, because they need to be able to field a team.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see how the math works out there, but.
There's a lot of maneuvers that have to occur.
That's what I was trying to explain to you. I think the Dallas Cowboys are in a very similar situation 2 years from now with Dak and CD. Where
that's the thing. No, Dak's contract starts this year.
and I think they're going to – and they paid what's-his-face, the running back that he got hurt. Did he get hurt again this year? What happened
Pollard
to him?
He just
didn't have a great year?
Because that's the thing.
Dallas being Dallas, baby. I love it.
So again, and that's why this is all so insane and incredible because, like I said – Herbert right now, sure, next year is going to be making like $19 million, but it's just going to keep going up and up and up because he's off his rookie year. It's been 5 years. He's no longer on his rookie deal, and that's the thing. Dak Prescott, they're going to have to pay him, just going back to the Dallas that you had mentioned. Dak Prescott had already been franchise tagged twice. They no longer can franchise tag him, plain and simple.
No, that is fair.
So that's why his salary cap hit is
I don't
crazy.
think Dak wants to leave.
No, he doesn't. But I'm just saying that's going to hurt.
Yeah, no,
the team
they're going to have to pay him.
You can't
like
push him down the line or franchise tag him where then you're getting the average of all the quarterbacks and getting underpaid.
You're there, and he's going to be paid by somebody.
But all in all, love the hire for the Chargers. Don't love the move for Harborough. But hey, like I said. He got a nice fat contract, and if we find out that the NCAA was going to suspend him, then it was the right move.
So but I don't know. I guess are they expecting Harbaugh? Like, I would like to know their expectations of what they expect for Jim. If they expect him to win now immediately, hate the hire. I don't think it.
Again, they're a very patient organization. That's why I was talking about Brandon Staley, where that's like they give him multiple, chances, and they eventually.
I looked at he was 10-7 that year after being 9-8 the year before that, and so that's where I'm saying he was making progression. I don't think he was deserving of being fired over that half of football when they looked great in that first half. But I mean, we can disagree on that, but I don't know if there. I don't know if there's an answer. I don't know if there's a quick answer in that division, because I want to say they're in there with the
Chiefs.
The Chiefs,
Denver,
and Oakland.
Yep. Vegas now.
Vegas.
Raiders. That's why I was saying, like,
I think, and to be honest, I think we're sleeping on Vegas. What Antonio Pierce was able to do, has he been hired there officially?
Yes, officially he's been hired.
He deserves to be, because what he was able to do there with no changes. There was no adding in of a new piece or bringing in a new guy. It was him.
Josh McDaniels
it was him.
Awful head coach, yeah.
I'm very curious to see what he can do with a team once he gets to put his fingerprint a little bit more on it.
Even more, a whole offseason.
You know what I mean?
Training.
Yeah, a whole offseason of putting the mindset of, hey, this is Raider football, baby. This is what we do.
Give you guys an insider tip.
I'm big on
fantasy
Pierce.
football, strictly fantasy football. Get the Raiders defense. I can potentially
like
seeing them like a top 5
You're telling me
defense.
he isn't going to motivate Max Crosby to be in the best D end he could ever be?
Max Crosby literally said if he's not hired, which he's now been hired, but he was saying if you don't hire him as the head coach, I'm requesting a trade. That's how much he loves.
And that's where that's that cohesiveness of being a team that you want. You know what I mean? Where you don't want it if you're about to send the guy away, obviously, but in the situation where things were heading in the right direction, he's the dude. I'm big on him, and that division's going to be fun to watch, man.
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
excited. I would love to see a division a year or two from now, 5 years from now.
5 years from now?
Don't give me 5. Give me 4. I still want Pat to be good.
Okay.
I want to see the Kansas City Chiefs finish third in the division. I want to see it. I don't know if I ever will. It would just make me happy. I don't know why I'm starting to hate them as much as I am, but
Yeah, let's talk about Kansas City. So, unfortunately, last week we apparently gave no love to Kansas City, which is shocking, being that they won the Super Bowl last.
Well, we got a little carried away. We got a little carried away in some other areas.
Yeah, well,
so
I know, but
it was on the list. We just never got to it.
We had briefly mentioned, like the Texans. We talked about the 49ers. We talked about the Ravens. We literally talked about everyone but Kansas City. Ironically,
I still got Kansas City losing this week.
Well, yeah.
So that's where I will say that obviously Kansas City handled playing a road playoff game in Buffalo very well. And
did you know that was Patrick Mahomes' first road playoff?
Oh,
That's insane.
Oh yeah, and I mean,
that's insane.
Look at what the division that he's been playing in has been for the past couple of years, where the Chargers were easily your second best team.
Oh yeah, but they were making
just
the playoffs. They were making the playoffs.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Like
that's
they
why
were
this
good.
division's going to be very interesting.
But I think give me 4 years from now, because I still want Pat to be considered in his prime. Which, who knows really how long that... I feel like that's a weird time period for a quarterback where...
The thing is, though, when I'm looking at this roster, this was Patrick Mahomes' down year, and they really kind of went young. I mean, Rashid Rice, young. Isaiah Pacheco,
the explanations
young.
The explanation is not hard to find. You know what I mean? Where,
in 4 years, those guys are still...
Isaiah Pacheco, I don't know. It's his second year, right? Yeah. That's where, I mean, he ran the ball so well last year.
He just plows through people.
I love watching him run, dude. He's so tiny, but he runs like he's Leonard Fournette.
But I'm just saying, 4 years from now, he won't be 30, because I would get it.
Well, 4 years from now, he'll be irrelevant, in my opinion, just because it's so hard for running backs to stay relevant.
I just feel like he could stay relevant. I would agree with you.
Especially because Andy plays for the Chiefs.
If he was 26, 27, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, he's 30. Most running backs, they hit 30, yeah, they're gone. But he'll only be like 28. He's kind of technically just going into his time.
Think of the Chiefs' carousel of running backs. You've got...
Well, they had Jamal Charles for years.
Yep, but then Andy got there.
Right.
And I couldn't list all of them.
They had Jamal Charles, then they had Kareem Hunt, then they had eventually Le'Veon Bell.
They had Shady McCoy. They had Le'Veon Bell. Yep. They still have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They've got Pacheco, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like I would say he's on pace for the Clyde Edwards-Helaire treatment, where his first few years in, he was taking all the reps from Lev Bell, and we were like, why? This doesn't make any sense. And he was producing. Pacheco comes in, he starts taking all the reps, and we're like, why? He's producing. And it's on pace for a new running back to become available and for the Chiefs to be like, I'm going to grab him. So that's just where I don't know if I could say Pacheco will definitely be a Chief.
Okay, well, either way.
So that's just what I'm saying. It's a carousel there. Nothing against Pacheco. I like him a lot.
I just feel like obviously maybe in 4 years, yeah, you're right. Maybe Travis Kelce has retired, but
did I expect the Kansas City Chiefs to handle last week as well as they did?
You know what?
And the defense deserves a lot more props than we're giving them. Because
absolutely, yeah.
I don't know. I did not expect that defense to be able to just flip a switch and be like, hey, I'm going to stop Josh Allen now. Where
I don't know. Statistically, they were the 5th best defense this year.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying against when I think of all of the Kansas City Bills games in the past.
Right. It's been a shootout.
Even the one of the regular season game of this year that the Bills won. You know what I mean?
The Bills did.
Yeah, the Bills won the regular season game. So that's where it goes to show you hard to beat a team twice in the same season.
Hard to beat them in the playoffs.
And that goes to show you, and that's why we see all the division splits. Hard to beat a team twice in the same season. So that I think we should have probably put a little more weight on. That it's different. It's like beating Carolina twice in the same season.
All right, yeah. But no, the Bills played really well.
Until what was it, late third quarter when it seemed like the offense sputtered.
For the missed kick, that's the kicker kicked the ball. He missed.
Agree, but
he got him in field goal
You can't
range.
argue. I mean, I'll pull up their drives in the third quarter. Like the first half, it was drive, like at least have a field goal attempt, like out all these drives where it seemed like they couldn't do anything. From midway through the third quarter on, they couldn't put up any points.
But here's the thing. This is my takeaway from the game. All right. They were going back and forth. Kansas City's offense and the Bills' offense. Eventually, guess what? The defense of the Bills just collapsed. They just stopped. They couldn't stop Kansas City.
Agreed, and they got the one stop that they needed to get.
Right.
And that was to keep the teeter-totter. Yeah, to keep the teeter-totter game in effect after the Bills went for it on fourth down,
with DeMar Hamlin.
I don't know if we talked about this. It was the right call.
Yeah,
Tony Romo said it immediately.
There was
there.
10 men on
I
the field.
immediately was like, "What in the hell? What in the hell was that?" Like
It was only 10 men on the field.
Well, because it was a long 4th and 4. It was a really long 4th and 4 to begin with, and then you add on the fact that it's essentially a shotgun snap. So DeMar was going to have to run it 9 yards to get the first down. But when you got Notre Dame alum Drew Tranquil shedding 3 blocks to get in there and make a play, ruins the whole idea and the concept. Mathematically, though, the coaching concept of, hey, this is a no-brainer. If they put this there, we've got 8 guys to block 6. It's doable. We're going for it. You got to leave it on because if they get that, he's a genius.
Because Tony even said they might have audibled that. That might not have been. They might have been like, oh wait, there's only 10. This is an automatic audible.
It was the Pat McAfee. It's the Pat McAfee audible story where they say, hey, if we are kicking a field goal against the Steelers inside of the 7-yard line, we're running the fake. We're doing it. It is 100%er
until he up there.
Until something goes wrong with it all. So yeah, no it. It was one of those games, though, where it just seemed like...
I'm not blaming Josh. I actually...
I agree. I said that...
I am a Josh...
The Bills offense sputtered.
I am a Josh Allen hater, but I still acknowledge Josh Allen is like a top 5 quarterback. Like, I can hate a guy and still give him respect.
Agreed. I am right there with you with that, and that's where...
I'm sure some people were expecting me to come here and just be like, oh, hey, remember when Josh Allen fumbled on that final drive, and it just so happened that, his own
Well, that's right.
team
I was trying to give the Bills...
the ball?
I was trying to give the Bills defense a little bit of props because the forced fumble through the end zone, that was a big play. And
that was huge.
I'm upset that Mikey wasn't here. We talked about it before we started filming, but a missed block by the greatest tight end of all time, Travis Kelce. So yeah,
led to the fumble,
which if that game is a different result, definitely one of the biggest missed blocks, potentially of all time.
Well, but then again, we're starting to get into that.
You get into the hypotheticals,
yeah,
because,
absolutely. Like I said, if Josh Allen, when he fumbles that ball, Kansas City jumps on it again and not his own, then we don't even blame Tyler Bassett. Then the narrative again shifts to Josh Allen saying like, "Oh my gosh, again he averages 1 turnover a game." So I thought Josh played well. I thought he, for the most part, until like you said that last drive where he kind of decided to huck the ball down like 20 to 30 yards and try to get that touchdown and not take a check down to get the field goal a little bit closer. Again, but that's just Josh Allen's mentality, and you got to live with it.
That's right.
Love him or hate him, you got to live with it.
It very much, like, as I was somebody who was rooting for the Bills, not liking the Chiefs. So,
I like the Chiefs. I don't like the Bills.
I'll just take you through the Bills' drives throughout the game. This is the first half, start at the beginning.
Yeah, they were just trading
field
back
goal,
and forth.
touchdown, punt, touchdown. Those were so you had 1 punt in the first, and then you start out second half with a touchdown.
Yep.
You lose the ball on downs, but and that was only that fake punt was only their second drive of the second half.
Wow.
So that's something that I didn't realize either, putting that into perspective. Yeah, so
that's why I'm saying the
second
Chiefs,
drive of the second half. So it was that punt, that fake punt really had turned everything around.
But then they fumbled it, so through the end
zone. Exactly. So that was a huge break for the Buffalo Bills. Yep. Massive break, and a huge play by Poyer to knock the ball out when he did.
Which will lead to a rule change because, Bills versus Chiefs.
Bills punt. And then the Chiefs punt again too. So they did force another punt, and then they had the missed field goal. So that's where I'm trying not to put. They didn't get the punt took a while. The punt actually was only a 5-play drive. I was thinking they sustained a longer drive than that.
Are you talking about the Chiefs?
The Chiefs, and the last drive of the game, that was another 5-play drive. They had an opportunity to get the stop on. Did they get an opportunity for a stop?
What are you talking about?
No, they got a second and 2. They picked up the first down to seal
Isaiah
it. So
just ran over people.
I mean, it was just an 8-yard run on first down that pretty much seals it when you only need one. So that's where I don't want to put too much blame on the Bills defense either, because they got the fumble and they got the punt. They got their stops in the second half. Or no, that was all in the second half there.
Well, second half. How about for the whole game though?
I mean,
eventually you got to be like, hey, guys, like, I'm glad you stopped them once.
Agreed.
Or you stopped them twice. But, if they're scoring 80% of the time, that's not it's not the greatest feeling where it's like, hey, hooray, we stopped him one time. Hooray, we stopped him for the second time. It's like, no, that's
but
called
I mean,
doing your job.
If you could hold him to a field goal, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So that's where I'm gonna see how many stops they got. 1, 2, 3 stops. 1, 2. Two stops if you're not counting the end of the half on the Chiefs, which was only one play. So yeah, if you want to break it down that way, yeah, it was 3 stops to 2 stops. So they did get that extra stop.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, again, we're being nitpicky here.
Agree, and it's
the playoffs with a chance to go to the AFC Championship.
The vibe of the game, it was in Buffalo. Like it seemed like that it was going the Bills' way. After the fumble through the end zone, it was like this.
I was just like, oh no.
The feelings of the emotional roller coaster of the game is not even being diehard fans for either. We were rooting for teams, but we weren't diehard fans. We went through a little bit of the emotional roller coaster. So
really
the Chiefs do.
I was really cheering for the Chiefs.
The Chiefs do, deserve their props for coming out on top of a game that I think that all of us thought it would be a really uphill battle for the Chiefs to get through. And, hey, they were able to get through. Mahomes stayed tough through that game.
Yeah,
so.
Mahomes only has 3 losses in the playoffs. 2 of them are Brady, and the other is Joe Burrow, which is, again, why last week I kind of was saying, hey, maybe Joe Burrow is more like the Peyton Manning, and why, again, I was saying that the Bills team is more like the Chargers, where you're just like, okay, you guys might get to the AFC, but you're always going to kind of run into a Joe Burrow or a Patrick Mahomes. Because obviously Tom Brady, who gave Patrick Mahomes his 2 losses, there isn't in the league anymore.
Agreed. I can see where you're coming from there, but we got one final football topic to wrap us up there, and then we'll move over to a quick segment of baseball, which is very rare for the MTJ podcast here.
Yep.
But we're going to wrap up football on a more interesting note, something that doesn't have anything to do with on-the-field play. Well, at least not in the NFL. It didn't have anything with on-the-field play. Boutte, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. Could be completely off. I don't know. I don't do research. Mikey sent us this right before we were actually about to get set up for today and get everything going here. And it was one topic that he did want us to cover. And it's mind-boggling when you look at the numbers behind it.
Wait, we're still listening to him? I thought he was suspended.
I mean, he is suspended, but this is
that good of a topic? All right.
It's a topic that, honestly, if you would have asked me about Boutte, I'd probably been like, the name looks familiar, but I really couldn't tell you who he is.
Wide receiver for the Patriots?
Wide receiver for the Patriots. Former LSU Tiger,
LSU.
I believe. Yep, former LSU Tiger. He was betting on an alias betting account, and it has been discovered that he placed more than 8,900 bets in a calendar year while at LSU on the football team.
What?
That is a ridiculous. That I really genuinely believe that isn't something that you can just turn on and off. If he was doing that for the year that they've found this alias account, I would be hard pressed to believe that he isn't betting on football games now.
How much was it? It was 8,000?
8,900 wagers, different wagers. So if those are all $1 wagers, that's $8,900. $2 wagers, double it. Go from there on what you think the base was for him to be betting.
That's over 24 bets per day.
Per day, and there are certain calendar days where there is no
betting.
Not no betting, but no major sporting events. So, I mean, you could be betting on foreign sports. Like, you can bet on anything.
But still over 24
It's one of my favorite Charlie Sheen. It's one of my favorite Charlie Sheen episodes. He's bragging about his cable. He goes, he was bragging about how good, they were looking at his bills, and his cable bill is very expensive, and his payment to his bookie every month was very expensive, and Charlie was helping him, go through. He's like, why are you paying so much for these two? He goes, I love gambling, and I love gambling on people. He goes, if there's a kid throwing a rock at a tree in Colombia, I can wager on it with this sports plan, and I do. Oh my gosh. But no, that is that type of numbers when you're looking at it. What is this man betting on?
Wait a minute,
8,900.
That's a bet every hour. There's 24 hours in a day. He's placing 24 bets per day. That's a bet an hour.
I mean, you're not. You can't look at it that way because.
Well, because he's got to sleep eventually.
No, you're looking at college football Saturdays. I mean, you're not placing one bet at a time and letting it go. He's placing probably 10 on a Saturday, and 10 on a Sunday, 10 on a Saturday, 10 on a Sunday, and it must be more than that. You know what I mean?
It has to be more
and you've got your midweeks, you got basketball. Like if he's betting on everything, I could see how. I was gonna say I could see how you get there. I can't. Like you are literally betting everything. Like it seems like.
That's what I'm saying. Like because there's 24 hours in a day. He's making over 24 bets per day. That means you're making one bet an hour. But again, no one can. I mean, you can for a few days. But
it is just mind-boggling.
Every hour of every day.
I'm someone who self-admittedly puts in bets from time to time on sports games. I couldn't fathom the amount of sweat this man lost sitting in his dorm or wherever, his apartment building, wherever he was, watching 8,900 different bets play out.
Did it at least?
Dude, and I don't even know.
Did he go positive?
Well, think about it. They might be. I mean, you're hoping. Otherwise, the kid's got a trust fund like none other. Well, and that's right. I'm looking at it right now to see if there is any more details that have come out. This is something that is really, really new.
News?
I don't think it's breaking, but it's not. It's not massive news either. Like to the point, there's a lot of sports going on. You got college basketball in full swing. We're in playoff football, so I wouldn't say it's like it's not bottom line news either. Where you're gonna say breaking, this just happened.
Well, and plus he's a guy that's on the Patriots that really didn't do that good. It's not like he's a superstar in the NFL. Very well could be someday, but just not now.
So that's where I am, and you know what?
What?
WAFB, don't know where that news station is, but they are calling it breaking news. So
there you go.
We're going to call it breaking
news.
Put it on. Tom, do some edits. Breaking news. I never listen to myself. Dude, it is Mikey actually when he was, I don't know if you remember, but we were talking about doing like some editing at the beginning of last podcast. Yeah. And Mikey's like, I'm not apologizing to you, Tom. I'm apologizing to you, Tom. I felt it when I was going back. I was like, God damn it.
He's right.
He is right. He was apologizing to me as I'm getting ready to do this, but
maybe that's why we should.
I am going to hold myself to that one.
Sorry.
I'm going to hold myself to that one just because the breaking news. That I feel like that'll be an easy edit for me to make and shouldn't take too long.
We'll see. Comment below if he actually does it.
Well, there'll be another edit in there of the text. Clearly, didn't feel like doing this yet again. It'll just be an ongoing gag that we have here. But that's where with it being so new, I'm imagining that there really isn't
major details yet.
Oh, nope. There it is. Barstool. With the detailed title. At least 6 LSU games he participated in. He was bet on. So
that's a big no-no.
He's done. It was a cool career.
Yeah. Hey, play for the Bill Belichick.
The good news is I did see the TikToks of the guy placing bets, having like calling his buddy. Have you seen those?
No.
He was really good, dude. I think he posted his bail with parlays. Like there was like
perfect.
I'm not even kidding. 4 videos. There at least 4 videos that I saw where he was putting in like he was on the phone and you know how it's all videotape nowadays and he's on the phone with his buddy. He goes, "I need you to take this down. You got a pen and paper?" And the buddy's like, "Dude, how you been?" Like he's like, "Dude, not the time. I need you to take this down. You got a pen and paper?" And he's like, "All right, what is it?" He goes, "I need Atlanta -3," and he just lists off like a 5-game parlay, and it hit or something like that. And the video did have like the timestamp at the bottom of it because it's like the security police cam.
Yeah.
So could it have been edited? Absolutely. Am I gullible? 100%. But you can bet from jail. So if they want to take the, and they very well could. I guarantee you they are analyzing those 6 games heavier than
LSU,
you and I have ever watched any of our game films from our childhood, and we've watched those pretty intently, pretty closely. They're looking at these games. They're looking at him on the sidelines. They're looking at him everywhere. You know what I mean? And who knows if he told his, who knows if he's boys with the corners on the corner on the team that he goes up against in one-on-ones every day. Yeah. He's boys with them. He's like, "Hey man, I've got 200 that we will lose by 28 points. So if we're down 21 at the end of this game, You want to botch a coverage for me? Like, it could go deep. We don't know.
Right.
And that's what this door opens.
Yeah.
That's really what they're fighting with this, is this door opens so many different avenues to, okay, if we let the players have accounts and gamble on anything, who knows who they know? Like, it's all, everybody's connected. Like, it wouldn't be difficult for this to happen on a much wider grand scale than what we've seen here. So I'm telling you, he's not the only
NFL
one.
NFL career's over, right? Because I mean, obviously, I feel like
I think there might be jail time.
Okay.
I don't know. I might be talking out of my ass. As somebody who gambles on sports, I feel like there should be jail time. It's essentially fraud, I feel like.
Yeah.
I feel like there's not much difference in that than the people that were arrested for fraud that were stuffing weights into the fish at the fishing tournament.
Oh, yeah.
They're putting weights in fish.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's such a great
I've
video.
seen that,
Such a great video. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's if there is point shaving going on, I mean, if the guy balled out and bet on himself and Pete Rosed it, swagger. You know, like, I've got no issues with that. But the issue is the door being open of you gambling on your own game.
I'm one of those guys that, again, it's like I look at Floyd Money Mayweather, who, again, in boxing, it's like, yeah, I just bet on myself and I win, you know, kind of deal. It's just
as long as you're betting on you, I'm cool with it. The issue is
that possibility.
How tough is it it's really tough to prove. You know what I mean? If you're winning under 600, you're getting paid out in cash.
Yeah, it's
you know,
very easy to
you
prove
don't need
it in
to show
boxing.
ID.
It's like I just knocked him out, you know.
So, but no. I'm not saying the winning's easier. I'm saying the bet slips. Like you betting, like, you know, Floyd's never had the issue of losing, you know what I mean, or looking like he did flop. So that's where you can't ever question it.
I know, that's why I was saying.
Say it was a journeyman.
I just knocked him out, or
you know
I won by decision.
Say it was a journeyman who loses pretty frequently in their career. They're a 500 professional boxer, and they're betting on themselves.
Yeah,
then it looks really suspect. But how are we to tell him that he can't do it because Floyd can do it just because he's not as good as Floyd? That's subjective. You know, so that's where it's like where do we draw the line?
Bet on yourself.
Just shut the door.
If you can't, if the only time
I agree with you completely. I'm not arguing. I'm just saying how they're looking at it from the outside. If you're betting on
yourself to lose, oh God, then jail.
it's just, and that's where it's so tough to look at from the outside, where it doesn't tell us. So all we know is that
more will come out. In the
so it was
weeks.
just over a year. It was 13 months. So give him an extra month on our calculations. So, so that changes everything.
That does. Oh, let me.
I'll get a little more in depth here, but several $100,000 were bet. That is crazy. That is crazy.
This guy's just in college, right? Where's he getting this money from? Is this what he's doing with his NIL deal?
I know people that put $100 bets down on games. Like, up, down. They could be down $500. They could be up $500. They're gonna put $100 on the game minimally. That is their bottom bet. If he was putting $100 on every game,
yeah, that adds up quickly.
That is $890,000, Joe. It is, take every bet, multiply it by 100.
Yeah.
$890,000 would have been going in and out through the account. How this didn't raise red flags sooner? Craziness.
I thought he was using like an alias or something like that.
No, just I'm wondering how much the common person is actually gambling on a year-to-year basis. Like, I know, like, you know, you could bet $500 and split even and do it all over again and continuously do it and lose no money. Essentially, like, hypothetically, you know what I mean? So you could gamble infinite money, but I wonder what the average, like, you know, just throughout the course of the year, what total was wagered on by the average, like, U.S. gambler, and
most of those people aren't going to.
How many bets was it? Damn it, like 8. That has to be well over the average. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, to the point where this should have been looked at
a lot.
Feels like sooner. You know, so
like maybe after 3 months.
Especially with sports gambling being fairly new in a lot of states. It's not like, this alias account has had the history of that for forever and he just took access of it in the recent past. It's no, this is a new thing and that's abnormal. We should check it out. Like, that's where the dots aren't connecting for me.
The math isn't mathing.
But, I agree. I think, yep, and that's Barstool ends it. Oh, and it was Jack Mack. I'm a huge Jack Mack guy. Don't know if you're familiar with the Barstool cast, but Jack Mack's a good one. Jack Mack, not gonna plagiarize.
All right.
Jack Mack's words, not mine. His NFL career is the least of his concerns.
There you go. Jail.
So that's where jail time looks imminent. I don't see how you can't, especially if you profited from it.
Yeah.
Profited from losing, yes, I would happily sit on the jury that throws him in prison. If you threw,
but now you're biased, so you're not allowed to be on that jury.
Well, because but that's where I feel like it's really tough for I don't know how they keep it like mainstream news stuff. Like, I know they have to sequester people. I don't even know is that the correct pronunciation of that?
I have no clue.
It sounded good. I'm gonna go with it.
Sounds great.
But like for the OJ trial, they had to keep them like in their own hotel rooms, pretty much locked away from the world for
so
the
they
longest
would have
time.
become biased and
But it's like,
see other news.
Immediately,
and get
you see stuff, so it's like
you immediately see something
I'm
and
sure,
form your own opinion. It can be either favorable or unfavorable.
No, it's gonna be really, really interesting. So let's move over to baseball, though.
Baseball,
because Pete Rose,
guy
that is proven to have only bet on himself. I believe he could prove that he only bet on himself. Like I think he did, and MLB still said, "Hey, no." Greatest commercials ever, though, is I don't remember which one it was, but it was like, it was like, Pete, you're not allowed in the hall. He goes, what, even in my own home? Like, oh, it's just
or
great.
Something like, don't wear your shoes
man,
in the hall.
It is just such a travesty that he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So two different levels, two way different calibers of player. But that'll be our transition into baseball. There, Pete Rose has the gambling, and with the gambling, don't gamble on baseball. It's such a weird sport. Anything could happen any day. Just stay away at all costs, please.
Always told,
there's my betting advice.
After 3 innings. Take the under after 3 innings.
That's not terrible advice, depending on the bullpens. It's not terrible. But let's move over to the biggest baseball news recently here, and that's the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
The Hall of Fame just did their voting. Joe, I'll let you take it from here because I know you're pretty hot about one person in particular.
Yeah, so congratulations to Todd Helton, Joe Mauer, and Adrian Beltre. Yeah, Adrian Beltre. Those three have made it into I believe, probably the toughest Hall of Fame of all sportings really to get into. I mean, the way it works is you're allowed to be on the ballot for 10 straight years as long as you continue to get...
I thought you were talking like sport-wise comparatively, and I was like, I don't know how long baseball's been around comparatively to basketball. You're talking about the process to get in.
Because
I'm there with you.
You have to have...
Continue.
Yeah, you have to have enough votes on your ballot for those 10 years. You have to get 5% of the vote, so you have to show up on at least 5% of all those ballots that are being cast to continue to stay on the ballot. And then after 10 years, guess what? If you
Wrong name. I was thinking of a different person, so everything we said earlier when we were talking to each other, scrap it. Wrong name. Completely wrong name. So that conversation we had beforehand, throw that out the window. So you're good, but no, you're completely right with the process being absolutely insane because you got to wait so many years afterwards.
You have to get 75% of the vote. You have to appear on 70% of those ballots to make it into the Hall of Fame, which is just it's super tough, especially when you look at high school.
You need 70%. That number ended up being 292 total votes.
292.
That was what the 70. What was it? 70%? I thought it was 70.
75.
Oh, you're right. 75%.
No, that's how ridiculous it is.
Yep,
because
75.
let me remind all folks here: if you're in college, if you're in high school, you only need a 65 to pass a test, and well, that's here in the United States. If you go overseas, you only need like a 50. But
that's right.
Anyway, we're getting off track.
I was pulling up the whole list. Did you get into how you can get dropped from the ballot?
So,
did you cover that?
Dropped if you get less than 5%.
Less than 5%. Did you mention that before?
Well, that's why I keep saying you have to have 5%
gotcha,
remain on
otherwise,
the ballot.
Otherwise you're dropped from it there. That's where
it doesn't matter.
I was
not
looking it up
guaranteed
here.
to be on there for 10 years. You have to continuously over
you don't get to be
5%.
there just because you played baseball and you retired and you get your 10 years on the ballot. No.
Absolutely.
You got to earn that. This is an earned sport, baby.
But yes, so one guy actually, unfortunately, missed the Hall of Fame by 5 votes, and that person is Billy Wagner. So, funny thing is, I am not a super huge baseball fan like Tom is over there. However, I was a huge fan of MLB 2K9. I love playing as the Mets. I thought their jersey was really cool to have Jose Reyes, Beltran, and then Billy Wagner was my closer. So I have fond memories of Billy Wagner, even though I was actually kind of like controlling him. So it was nice to know that when I went and looked up Billy Wagner's stats, he is debatably probably a top 5 closer of all time. So I was pumped to see that my image of him when I was younger wasn't that far off because I had him probably as like the third best closer. I would have, Mariano Rivera and Hoffner and then Billy Wagner in my
I think
head.
you're wrong. I think you're wrong.
You don't think he's like top 5?
That's the Mets fan in you.
I'm a Yankee fan, but anyway.
You thinking Mets nostalgia there? No,
Would you rank him? Like, if not top 5, top 10.
I gotta pull up his stats because I was thinking of
Top
another
10?
guy's stats
Like,
there.
Well,
That's right. I was looking at the voting. I was looking at the voting from last year because I was curious if he got a bump up this year.
He did, right?
I don't know. He got 70. Yeah, no, yeah, he had 51% last year, so a huge bump up.
A lot of people think he'll make it next year because it's his final year on the ballot next year, and he needs 75, and he was at, like 74 or 73 this year and missed by 5 votes. So
yeah, 5 votes he missed by.
And a lot of people say that when it's your final year, you get, a little extra bump because it's your last year, and people kind of feel bad for you. So he just barely missed, but I'm still a little upset that he didn't make it this year simply because of my fond memories. And so, Tom, I'm turning it over to you because I feel like, have had great conversations, not just in, baseball or anything like that, but any sport we talk about the Hall of Fame. Like, I feel like we've had good discussions about, like, basketball Hall of Fame. We've talked about, like, Lou Williams before. So I'm just wondering, what is your criteria of, like, what it takes to make it into the Hall of Fame? Like, do you think it's kind of like, hey, I'm a top 100 player in this position at the time I retired, and there's been millions, if not, thousands, millions and millions of players who have played this position, and I'm a top 100 player of all time at the time of my retirement? Because, again, that's why I'm kind of asking, because of, like, Billy Wagner. Let's just say he's, like, top 10 closer of all time. Would that be enough for you to get into the Hall of Fame?
I hate that term. I really do, because closer wasn't adopted until the mid-90s.
Right.
So in the grand scheme of baseball, you're only looking at 30 years of closers, and closers, if you're good, you have a 15-year plus career.
Right.
So we've seen a total of great closers, you know what I mean? The ones that have that extended career. You've only had time to see 2 generations of it if you've gotten back-to-back good closers, where they're both going to last 15 years. So I think that's really hard to define as, hey, what is a good enough closer, where you got to look back at the other guys. Like, the name that I know when I was talking to you earlier was Goose Gossage. That's a name that I know is slept on, but
is he in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Goose is in the Hall of Fame, but I think he finished up his career in the late 90s or like early late 90s. But there's like a lot of other guys that I think were unreal as relief pitchers.
Okay, yep.
That might have been around before the closer title. And then we look at what closers turned into today. It's really hard to, like, when I'm looking at Billy Wagner's career stats and what he did.
Right.
I almost want to compare him to Craig Kimbrell.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if Craig Kimbrell's a Hall of Fame guy.
Well, I will say this, though. In 1999, Billy Wagner did win the official Relief Man of the Year award.
Yeah, no, 100%. So, yeah, no, and if he hadn't won that, yeah, I don't think there's any question about. I would be hard on the other side. Where I think he's a borderline guy, because we're talking about, this is the beginning. He was there in 95, so he's at the beginning of being a closer.
Right.
You're the first generation of having this opportunity.
And he ended up being sixth place. So there's 5 closers.
You're the third best during that time period, maybe. And that's arguably, I think.
That's why I'm saying arguing, yeah.
Closers.
Now, are you impressed, though, per 9
2000s.
innings, he averaged, I think, 11.99 strikeouts, so basically 12 strikeouts per 9 innings?
If you
especially as a reliever?
Look at it comparatively to, like, Josh Hader is the guy that I would say now is probably, like, the man. Josh Hader's stats are ridiculous. Josh Hader, okay. And then he just signed the fattest bag ever for being a closer.
Per 9. All right, so he's at 15.1
Yeah.
So three more strikeouts basically.
It's an inning. Like three
another inning.
strikeouts is a lot of strikeouts in the course of a game. That's an inning's worth of strikeouts that he's giving you comparatively. You know what I mean? That's 3 more outs. That's a big number there where I feel like it's good, and he was good. Like I'm not saying he wasn't.
I mean, that's the thing. I'm remembering him as a Mets.
I wouldn't be mad if he's in.
He's actually in the Hall of Fame locally for the Houston Astros. So that's the thing. I remember him as a Met. Apparently, he was best on the Astros.
He was longest tenured with the Astros,
and he was also very good on the Phillies as well. So
he was only there for like a year, I think. Phillies.
I thought he was there for a little while. I thought the Mets was actually only like a couple of years, and just ironically, because again of the video game, that's why I remember him.
2 years in Philly.
What were his numbers?
Showing me his batting.
Oh, nice.
You gotta love Google.
But
he had. Let's see. He only had 48 innings pitched in 2004.
Ooh. Oh, rough.
And 31 hits. Ooh. 6 walks, though. That's not bad.
Let's see. He does have a career WAR over 27, though. And he's a 7-time All-Star. I'd say that's pretty decent. 1, 2.
Well, and he made the All-Star game late in his career, too, and with Atlanta. I forgot that he went to Atlanta at the end of his career.
Wow, he made the All-Star game in his final year. That's crazy.
Where's his
Talk about kind of retiring on
Yeah,
top.
well, dude, he had his second best year that last year.
Yeah. Well, let's see. And then
It
I got it right here in Philly. He had an ERA his first year of 2.42, and then his second season there 1.5. He was.
Yeah, but see, this is where something you got to take into consideration.
Yeah.
If we're putting a lot of emphasis on saves, we should also be putting a lot of emphasis on blown saves, and Billy Wagner has 3 losses in that year as well. So that means not only did he blow that save, he lost the game. Like he was coming in the bottom of the 9th or whatever, and to try to save the game, and he got a loss one way or another. Or they could have went extras, I guess. But that is an I hate that they don't have that stat. You know what I mean? Or like attempts at a save.
Yeah,
they should give that there.
I do want to say I thought I saw it earlier. His save percentage was either 83 or 86%.
No, yeah, career-wise, and that's good. That is really, I feel like it is fairly standard, but
Which
it's
is
just
why
it's what I'm looking at.
Again with a minimum attempts of like 50
It's why
saves
I'm
or
okay with
something.
him being on the ballot for as long as he has been on the ballot. Is looking at him comparatively to Mariano Rivera. Mariano's hands down, head and heels about played same time period.
Same with Hafner.
Everything.
Or Hoffman.
Yeah, Hoffman. I was like Hafner. You threw me off there. Trevor Hoffman, same story.
He just played for Milwaukee, the Brewers.
Padres.
I knew it was a blue and yellow.
Yep. Yeah, it was when they were rocking the Blues. Let me see. I'm just trying to think of.
Well, either way, I guess we're going to find out next year.
Jonathan Papelbon. Like Jonathan Papelbon might have. That's actually maybe a really good comparison. I'm because Jonathan Papelbon made a ton of All-Star games.
True, but I think he had a shorter career because of injuries.
True.
And
that does play a big role.
Yeah.
And him being good late in his career.
Late in his career, like you said, he had his second best year in his final year. Like I said, talk about retiring on top. Like
and he.
Uh-oh.
Google was telling me.
Selling you.
Telling me at a different ERA than what Baseball Reference, and I trust Baseball Reference.
Yeah, I would trust Baseball.
What'd you say? You said his WAR was 23, right, for Billy Wagner? Do you still got Billy Wagner's up?
No, I said it was over 27.
Oh, that's right. Papelbon's 23, and I don't know how WAR's calculated.
Especially with a closer, because it's he just blew it, so obviously
I struggled with WAR. I get that it's relevant and it means a lot. Don't know how it's calculated. Let me see.
Well, either way, like I said, I'm just kind of was happy to think
he made 6 All-Star games, and he put Papelbon. 11-year career, so 4 years.
4-year difference.
So 4-year difference.
How's the ERA?
2.4. And let's see. Where is Ks per 9?
What was it? What was his ERA?
His Ks per 9 was 10.
Okay, so
ERA was a 2.44.
okay,
That's
so,
what I mean. Like, I think
so Wagner's better in both of that. Wagner had a 2.3 ERA and then had a
minusculely better, yes.
okay, yes, but it's still better in a longer career.
Agreed. I'm not saying he's better, but I'm saying if we're looking at a closer comparison, where I think I think that's very comparable. 6 All-Star games, never was the dominant closer. Craig Kimbrell, you got to roll this. You had other closers that were bigger names, but you're the third guy around, and you're still making all the All-Star games. You know what I mean?
True.
Like, I think it's, and the stats aren't very far off. Like, he was 11 point something for Ks per 9. Papelbon's a 10.
Yeah, 11.9. He was basically a 12, which is why I just said 12 per 9.
But that's where when we're talking about greatest closers ever.
Oh no,
I think you could draw the line there, and I wouldn't be upset. You know what I mean? Like, I think
draw a line on who?
On Wagner, and say you're really close to getting in, but you're just not quite over the hill.
Because again,
I think he opens the doors to the Jonathan Papelbon.
My question though is then like what do we consider when do we draw that line? Like obviously you're saying right there, but what about other positions?
Well, that's where that's why I'm like saying. So I'll ask you. To answer your question, I will ask you the question.
Right.
Knowing how close these stats are, do you draw the line at Wagner and not let Papelbon in? Because I know for a doubt, especially with how later in his career,
he kind of fell off.
He had in 2015, he got traded during the middle of that year. He had a 1.5. Oof. That was in the middle of his second to last year. So I get like he didn't have a bad year, but wasn't great. But it definitely.
Well, that's just the.
He had better. Wagner had a few better years in there, but he also had a few years that were worse because. Let me see.
Well, with the save stat being so
his
new,
last year wasn't good.
With the save stat, like you said, kind of being like
how many saves did he have?
My line would be like, hey, like you said, we're going through a couple generations here. We've seen probably 2 generations. Is that fair to say?
I think you could even probably say 3, just because you know what I mean. We're talking about Hall of Fame caliber as well. Like we're talking about dudes. So not every team. If everybody had a Hall of Fame guy, it would make that line even harder to draw.
Which is why
because not everybody can get in.
If it's 2 generations, mm-hmm. I say you take the top 5 closers of each generation would be a good starting point. Because how many teams are in the MLB?
I think that's too many, dude. You're talking top 5 from each generation.
That's
talking
15 people.
We're talking about a committee.
Years.
We're talking about a committee that is the hardest to get into.
Well, but
we're talking about letting top 5 from the generation in.
To kind of start a precedent.
They let in. That's what I'm saying. You're starting a terrible precedence. This is a committee that lets in 3. They let in 3 baseball players.
Well, it would be over, year. Of course, 10 years.
But they're all going to be retired in the same. So it'd be almost like what you're asking for there. I feel like is almost a closer. There's the word.
Yeah.
A closer every other year. After like 5 years from now, you should be getting one like every 3rd year from now, which I don't agree with. Like these are once in a generation talents. You know what I mean? That's the point of the Hall.
Right.
Is you gotta draw the line somewhere. Do I agree? I'm not gonna be mad if Billy Wagner gets in.
I think he gets in.
But the line gets drawn right after him seeing Jonathan Papelbon stats because I cannot. I might never watch a baseball game again if Papelbon gets into the Hall of Fame. Like that's where I think that's going to be the 2 determining factors: the extra 4 years, his last year being one of his best years ever, being Billy Wagner, and his best years were he had more really really good years, what I should say, because Papelbon did have a year where he had a .92 ERA, which is just silly. Well, that is actually ridiculous. Well, but that was in 2006.
I just felt like with Billy Wagner, for the most part, you could always say it's like, yeah, Mariano's better than you, and then so is why do I keep saying his name wrong? Hoffman's better than you, but then right after that, it's like, oh, Billy Wagner.
Yeah, but then that's where I'm saying, like in 2006, Jonathan Papelbon was better than Billy Wagner.
Right.
He was around then and had posted a .92 ERA, like, and then he followed that up with a 1.85 ERA. So there was a time period.
Yeah.
What was? Let me see what Wagner. And that's where you get into baseball, where it's
because now also I just feel like he was consistently always a top 5, top 3. He might not have been number 1, but he didn't really ever drop out of the top 5. That's why he has over 400 saves.
So that's what I'm saying. 2006, like that was his first year with the Mets. He had a 2.4 ERA, like 70 games, like really
I
good
think he
stats.
got injured, right though? Or
No,
what
he
you talking
pitched in 2006.
I thought you
Yeah,
said
2006. No, 72 innings pitched.
I thought you said the Mets he got injured. So
No, not the Mets. He got injured.
oh, okay.
It wasn't the Mets. It was you said Philly. You said that earlier. Philly, he got injured. He
Philly,
only played 45 games.
Same division.
So yeah, 2006, 2007, even 2000.
You just keep looking at his numbers, right? And you're just like,
Well, that's where I'm. Well, now because I'm comparing him to other guys.
Yeah.
That's where baseball gets tough.
and that's why it's fun.
Is because you got to draw the line somewhere,
Yeah.
and this is one where I can see why only 50% of the people voted his name last year.
Yep, but now he's up to 70, and then, like I said, hopefully he gets in next year.
Is next year his last year?
Yes.
So if next year's his last year, I think he'll probably get him with like an 85%. That wouldn't surprise me. And what's cool about it? Not cool.
Cool.
What I don't like
is the
is
dropping aspect?
it's the writers. It's
writers.
the MLB writers that get to make these votes. I don't remember how Billy Wagner treated, the media. But if you treated the media poorly, and you're a borderline, and if Billy Wagner treated the media poorly, he would not get in. Period. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
that's where if those reputations, they follow you in some ways that, the stats don't matter in the sense. So there are some biases, and the amount of voters voting each year varies because all of the baseball media have a ballot to vote. They get mailed one. You can mail it back in if you choose to.
I read about a guy. He put out an article today. He's for the New York Times, and he talks about how he did not have Billy Wagner on his ballot, and he said, "I just couldn't do it for a reliever. I think starting pitchers are way more important. I don't really care about his ERA. I cared about how many innings you're going to be chewing up in a reliever."
I disagree.
I'm just telling you what he said. He was like,
I can hear where he's coming from.
He mentioned a couple names, obviously. I didn't recognize them. He's like, these guys aren't out in the Hall of Fame, and they pitch 200-plus innings every day, and I'm expected to vote for Billy Wagner, who's only throwing 70 innings. Oh.
That to me is...
Sorry, New York Times,
Post. Well, whoever. No, I'll speak directly to you. You, sir, are not a baseball fan. You may be a part of the baseball media, but you don't know how to truly watch baseball. Baseball has evolved from the days of relievers for the better.
Actually, relievers are coming more and more. Now they have openers again, and so it's almost like coming back.
Yeah, no, and that's its own little sidebar that we could probably throw into a dry episode once football season's over. But it's a thinking man's game, and when you're looking at the numbers, you're saying the hardest innings to get out, and the pressure is non-quantifiable. That's the biggest deal with the ninth inning, especially now with all the cameras, the lights, everything on you. You're out there, and your only goal is not to blow the game against the world's greatest hitters. There's room for it in there. I agree with him where I think the line needs to be drawn at a harsher point because it is for such a small portion of the game. I don't know if Billy Wagner's that point though. He's the borderline guy where I could see it going either way. But letting him in, it sets a precedence that I don't know that the Hall of Fame wants to set.
John Heyman, by the way, is who you're talking to.
John Heyman. Don't know you, John.
Because he says,
right. But I genuinely don't believe that you've watched baseball since
he said right
the
now,
early 2000s.
I'm not against relievers by definition, as I have voted Rivera, Goose.
Okay, so he's
Trevor,
on the same page as me.
But there is a reason that Wagner has a lifetime WAR of 27.7 or less than half of that of like Bobby Abreu and others that I didn't vote for. So actually it seems to be more of there's also a reason a top reliever can get 100 million versus a top starter making 300 million. So again, he's kind of putting on more of importance, saying like, again, hey, a starter is more important than this reliever, which yeah.
Well, I mean, you're getting paid for your workload at the end of the day, but I mean, the starter can pitch 8 great innings of shutout baseball, and you can be up 1-0, and the closer can blow that
right
all
here,
for you.
I'm not anti-reliever. I'm pro-starter. So,
And I can get on board with that, but to an extent, like I can see where he's coming from, and I understand how Billy's a very borderline guy.
Yes, we've obviously kind of covered this. Yeah. I just think. Like
I think he's in next year.
Him.
I agree. I think with the big jump that he got this year, I think he's in next year.
I'm gonna be crying next year when it's like, well, Tom,
I won't be. I won't be upset either way because it does.
Just fond memories, nostalgia for me on a video game.
Well, there's prestige to the Hall of Fame. Like, if you're in the Hall, you don't want to see everybody else getting in because that takes away from your accomplishments. You know, it doesn't.
Right.
It's the greats that belong in there. And my example for you is a guy that was on Backyard Baseball, so you should know the name.
Pablo.
No, real person.
Real person.
You ever play the ones where they had the MLB superstars mixed in there as little kids?
Sure.
That's a no.
Just say the name, maybe I'll know.
Jeff Kent.
Yeah, I know Jeff Kent, kinda. Yeah.
Guy last year on the ballot. This year didn't make it in. He's one of those where a ton of nostalgia for me with that name, like Jeff Kent and Bagwell. You know what I mean? They went together. You know, it was just really.
What was Bagwell's first name?
Actually, probably Billy Wagner was on the team with him. Bagwell. That's gonna bother me. Might have been Jeff as well.
Jeff Bagwell.
It was Jeff Bagwell. I'm wondering if I'm getting the two of them confused now, and I'm not.
No.
No. Who's the guy I just said?
Jeff Kent.
Jeff Kent. No, yep. Jeff Kent would have played with the Astros, I think, for a stint. Not crazy long.
So then,
but yeah,
if we're talking
really
about,
good guy, a really good player.
If we're
San Francisco, not the Astros, San Francisco.
If we're talking about,
he was 2 years in Houston. I'm good.
All-time greats. So what do we? Would you want little asterisks about all the performance-enhancing drug users and get them in?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I'm very against that.
Okay.
I think the people, and I'm still against I liked watching baseball with the clock this year, but I'm still against it. At the end of the day, like, baseball is not an action sport.
Okay. Yep.
And
like contact, yeah, kind of.
I'm just even meaning, like, you're going to see a split second of action being a guy's going to hit a ball and he's going to run 90 feet and then we're going to take a break. That's baseball.
Could get a triple.
Okay, so yeah, have him run the 180 plus 90. I can't even think of what that math adds up. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, have him run the 270 and then we're going to take a break. That 270 is still should take less than 30 seconds. You know what I mean? And then we're going to take a break where everybody should be recalculating. The situation's changed. And that's every pitch. You know what I mean? Every pitch, the situation change. You got to recalculate. Okay, what do we think's coming? What are we doing? Reanalyze every. That's baseball. And
that's the
speeding
game you
up
love.
Well, it's not running the ball out. It's not running down the clock. There's no taking a knee. You get 27 outs, I get 27 outs. Whoever does more with them, that's who's going to win the game. That's what I loved about baseball. Small ball, the strategical aspect of it. It's not a come to the ballpark and watch the guy hit the ball. Watch everyone hit it out of the stadium. It would be boring if everyone was hitting monstrous home runs. You know what I mean?
Which is what was happening.
Don't get me wrong.
When only the long ball.
When only a few guys were. It wasn't everybody. You know what I mean? Like back then. I would argue.
Bonds.
I would say. I'm saying there's more home runs, and this is me not knowing anything off the top of my head. Saying there's more home runs last year than there was during the McGuire Bonds or than the Sosa McGuire home run race.
You're right,
years.
because I know that they broke the record like a couple years ago because it's all about the launch angle.
Yeah, the philosophy on hitting has changed where the skinny, fast guy used to have multiple positions. You could play him on the field. He was a skinny, fast guy that was going to make you get him out. And hit 270 and he'd hit 275 and steal bases for you.
Yeah, Brett Gardner.
Teams would much rather. Yeah, actually, that's a great example.
Brett Gardner.
Brett Gardner used to have a place on baseball teams.
They have a place
nowadays.
On the
I don't think you're gonna.
Yeah,
you're a utility replacement.
Yep, exactly.
Like it's. I'm not saying you're bad at baseball because in my mind you're still really good at baseball. It's you don't have backspin on your ball when you hit line drives. That's what turns a single into a double a lot of times is the backspin carrying the ball into the gap. So that just little area of how that's changed the game, I like because it's just a strategical change on the hitter's part.
Okay.
It's not a choice of I put the needle in my arm, so now I am going to hit more home runs. You know what I mean? Like,
who are those people?
McGuire. Canseco. A-Rod. A-Royd.
Bonds.
Oh, yeah, Barry. Yeah, your hat size doesn't grow like that, Barry. Sorry. Your head stops growing after 30. That's how it works. Unless you got just a big old tumor growing inside there.
It's not a tumor.
No, listen, if there's a tumor in there and his hand-eye was still as good as it was, I wish I had that tumor. Dude, are you kidding me? Do you realize how good Barry Bonds was, man? He was.
No, because I really wasn't watching baseball.
Oh my God, dude! Barry Bonds is the prime example. Like, we've already made that decision. Like, statistically speaking, I don't even know if it's arguable. I think Barry Bonds is the GOAT. Like, statistically speaking.
But because of the steroids.
He was walked at least once. I want to say multiple times. With the bases loaded.
Yeah,
like,
all
of that stuff is insane. Like, you would never even see that with Aaron Judge these days.
Yeah,
like,
no.
It was insane, Barry's stats.
And he's not going to be in the Hall of Fame?
No, he's already off the ballot. He's off the ballot. Well off the ballot. Oh my gosh, no, but that's where I think that was a good debate for us to have there, and I mean the Baseball Hall of Fame.
It is the hardest.
It's. I guess I don't know if I've ever looked deep enough into the other Hall of Fame systems of how of the entry. Like, I imagine that there always was a voting process or some type of committee, that oversaw everything.
It seems to be so much more public and out there that people go like, "What the heck?" kind of deal.
Well, you want to know why it's public? It's because the freaking media. The media are the ones that are voting.
It's the writers,
So, and which in this day and age, anybody can declare themselves media. So I'm really wondering how the MLB decides on which media is qualified to vote.
And not the average Joe Schmo running an official Twitter account.
To be noted, the votes went down from last year to this year. So that's where I don't know if I imagine they're cutting it off somewhere. But
so I guess, like I said, just to kind of go full circle here, what would you say, what would it take for a person to get into the Hall of Fame? Like, top 20 at their position of all time at the time of retirement? And then obviously as the year goes on, people kind of get ahead of that person, to get into the Hall of Fame, because it's such.
I don't think there's a formula.
It's just kind of a play it by ear every single time, where you're just like,
Well, because it's what do you weigh more?
A home run versus a single,
a batting title, or a Gold Glove. Like, how do you weigh the So that's where it becomes.
We're all suddenly it's like, okay, this guy's the 7th best defensive player of all time.
Do I need to know all of their accolades? Absolutely. Like, I need to know that to make an informed decision, but it's so hard to quantify, to put a number to that. Oh yeah, is the Silver Slugger when they won the World Series in that year, is that important? Like, does that outweigh something?
Golden Glove of a
But what if the guy shit? What if he pooped the bed in the playoffs? And he wasn't. So all of these things they go further than the numbers, it is, the numbers mean a lot. It's baseball. It's baseball. It's always going to mean the most of the story. Those accolades are what are going to be the determining factor in my mind for these borderline guys like Billy Wagner. But once these guys are shut out, the line's drawn. You have to be better. You have to show me you've got a better career than Billy Wagner, because as soon as I can find an example of where, if we do the blind reveals, if I can find an example of a guy that is a borderline,
Billy Wagner and Jonathan Papelbon,
and that's where Billy Wagner's better. We agreed. It's comparable.
But
where that line could be drawn there,
drawn.
There needs to be, and once the line is drawn, it's drawn forever. Right. You know what I mean? So
I agree with that.
Baseball is one of the weird sports where it's different than football, where I feel like football you can remember the impact that wide receiver had, where you know what I mean, where you don't have to necessarily look at, oh yeah, he had this many receptions.
Well, we talked about
it matters, but I feel like the aura also matters a lot more.
Yeah,
in
because
some
we
of those
talked
other
about
areas.
this a few weeks ago that there are NFL MVPs, not
Yeah.
even Super Bowl champs, but MVPs that aren't in the Hall of Fame. So it's just like you said, it's exactly that. It's the aura. It's like the eye test. It's like, oh yeah, this guy won MVP, but he put up stats because there was nothing else to use on that team.
Yeah, so that's where I feel like it's baseball, because it is such a simple game at its roots. You throw the ball, you hit the ball, you catch the ball, you're safe, you're out, continue running. You know,
but they're trying to make it more and more complicated with like run
They're-
saves, war.
Oh,
like,
no, and that's what I think makes it beautiful. And like taking such a simple thing.
I mean, you're almost getting into Moneyball now.
Yeah, and I'm huge into. I mean, everybody like
He gets
MLB
on base.
is-
I don't care.
Yeah, the MLB is Moneyball driven now because it works. Like it's stats, it's science being applied to human nature at the simplest
Kyle Schwarber
level.
was like a great example this year. He had like a 150 batting average, but hit over 40 home runs. So somehow his
Keep him in the lineup, baby.
yeah, his WAR or whatever, or what is it? The true baseball rate of home run strikeout.
Well, there's so many different ones. There's WAR. His WAR still was pretty good with hitting a .140.
Yeah, because like I said,
his what was the other one? No,
OPS or
no OPS is on base percentage. No, come on, slugging percentage. There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
I
he
had
had
to
like
get
a better slugging percentage.
Adderall's taking a little slow.
I'm pretty sure I read an article that his slugging percentage was higher than one of Babe Ruth's like best years.
I wouldn't
I
wouldn't doubt it.
Because of like the home runs and the true like and his walk rate. His walk rate and his like home run was absurd.
It's baseball is. I feel like they've.
Because no one cares about like singles.
Well, I'm trying to like football doesn't have eras. No one's named the eras. You know what I mean? Like,
right. I mean,
like you had your old school days where it was just running, like power eye football. Like, and then you had your spread, but. Everybody talks about them in the formations of how they developed, whereas baseball, there was like the dead ball era. There's a few different eras.
Yeah, the
steroid era in baseball where you can kind of look, okay, hey, I'm taking this era and I'm comparing it against each other as well as the eras before it to get to where we are.
Right.
Where I feel like in football, we can clearly see the game is vastly different than it was in the early 2000s.
And that's why.
But there's no eras, and that's where that aura, the eye test comes in. Is that what would you agree?
I kind of agree. I think there actually is like eras in football, and I eventually caved in and said Tom Brady's the GOAT because he went through like all those rule changes and still had success.
Agreed.
So that was the thing because at one point, football, there was only 14 games played. Obviously, growing up our whole lives, it was 16 games. Now we're into 17. So I truly do kind of like comparing eras, and this is why I get upset with certain debates and why I kind of like that take of just enjoy greatness that you're witnessing because it's so hard now, too, because of... And it's like I said, not just
enjoy
football.
The debate. We're talking about somebody's great career,
MLB,
their life's work.
Yeah, now MLB, we're in the shot clock era. So I mean, there's like I said, it's just I exactly agree with you that in MLB it has strict eras, and it's so weird that we only talk about MLB about like the eras, but we don't really ever talk about basketball.
And maybe I don't know
football.
Maybe it's just not as well known. Where
no, but you're even right because
they don't have names, right? Like to the best of my knowledge, like we all talk about it like, the spread offense, came in around this time, but it's not the spread offense era.
West Coast
it's not the West Coast offense era.
And that's the thing. In basketball, I know you're not super knowledgeable, but this is a perfect example because you're not so super knowledgeable basketball. You have, like, the Plumbers, and then you have, like, this era. It's like, well, look at all these guys. The hell are the
Plumbers?
Yeah, no, just like...
Mario and Luigi, they got a squad?
Yeah, basically.
2-on-2? They taking us on after the pod?
No, the Plumbers where it's like, again, they say it's like, well, yeah, look at Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain. Where
we're talking about the Plumbers that went to, what is it, UNC or Duke? I can't remember. I thought we were talking about Plumbers or like, some guy was going to clear out the lane and that was like the bad boys era. Like that's where
meant like where, like I said, you look at Bill Russell.
I get what you're saying.
And you're just like, that's an era. Look at that era. They're playing against Plumbers. But then ever since then, it's just like, you
want to talk about an era? Go to Bill Walton's era. I hate that man. You brought up his name. You want to get me fired up? Bring up Bill Walton. That guy sucks at his job. I hate him. The Pac-12 sucks. Bill, the Conference of Champions hasn't won a Power 5 sport championship in I really think since the early 2000s, maybe softball. UCLA softball might have won something.
Okay.
But you guys suck. And you suck, Bill. You're senile.
You don't love
and I
his
can't
commentary?
stand. Oh, I cannot stand him. Dude, he's terrible. The Conference of Champions. That was actually not a terrible Bill impression, to be honest with you. And I think that's where we're gonna leave it for today. I feel like that's a great place to wind it up there.
Enjoy
Bill
greatness,
Russell,
everyone.
Suck it. Everybody
Bill
else have
Russell,
a
you
great
mean
night.
Bill Walton.
Comment, like, subscribe, do all that stuff we always tell you to normally do. It was just another peaceful night without Mikey here. We'll see if we're gonna lift the suspension. But to everybody, we appreciate you tuning in. Please leave us a comment. Give us something to talk about next episode or something.
Please.
Like, that'd be cool. Have a great night.
Peace.